start us off.
Eden, I know I had the beach ball of death, as I think most of you with Max are familiar with. So it took me a minute to get on. Do we want to give it maybe one more minute to see if there's anybody else who maybe having Zoom loading issues or
And there were some late joiners, and we just sent them the Zoom link.
okay. Gene, it's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you, Jared. How are you?
Doing well. We were uh,
Good,
we were
good,
we were
good.
just walking Rockville Pike with the Pike District folks, looking at some pedestrian safety upgrades there. So wasn't quite as
Good,
hot as I thought it would be
good.
on the
Yeah, well,
plus
I
side.
was actually just sitting out on the front porch, not walking Rockville Pike, and remarking that although it was 93 degrees, it didn't feel like August. So I was happy about that for sure.
I was going to say we'll get the humidity shortly, and it'll
Exactly. It will get us. It will get
yeah.
us soon. Yeah, for sure.
Chair Leonard, I see you're on here. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Yes. Hi. Nice to see you all.
All right, well, it's 6:34. I think we should let's go ahead and get started. And as Eden mentioned, this is going to be recorded, so I know there's a lot going on between end of school year celebrations and graduations and other things before folks decamp for post July 4th. But it was really important for us to get this on the books as quickly as possible. Obviously, the official changes go into effect at the end of this month, June 29th, and so I think. We're really grateful that WMATA and RideOn are here. I think what we discovered was that a lot of the municipal folks up and down this corridor, and obviously, we have municipalities on both sides of Connecticut that are impacted by this. Didn't know as much as maybe we thought they knew on the issue, and so I think that's a failure. Frankly, we all need to own, from the elected official side, but also from the transportation side, and obviously these, sometimes stuff gets missed, and so as soon as we realized that there were some gaps here, we're really again appreciative of the team effort to get something organized as quickly as we could, so that folks that had questions, could have them addressed, could hear directly from the planning staff. And I think I want to stress that obviously while there are changes that are going into effect, at the end of this month, nothing is permanent. And I think as you'll hear from the folks on RideOn and WMATA, that this is, some of the changes were based on current budget projections and budget scenarios and ridership, but there is nothing that is written in stone. There is nothing that is permanent. Just because there is a change being made, in the immediate future doesn't mean that we can't also modify it in the future as well. I think many of you know who are close watchers of the state budget. We made a huge commitment, Senator Waldstreicher and myself and our colleagues, to investing fully in the Maryland Transportation Trust Fund, so that when it comes to things like RideOn and WMATA, we are not looking at having to make really difficult choices in service. And so that was a commitment that was incredibly important to many of us, to make sure that infrastructure is fully funded, including our transportation network. And we know that WMATA is the backbone of our community. So I just wanted folks to know that, again, just because something has changed and it may create some difficulties, it doesn't mean that we can't change it back at some point. And so with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to, well, actually, Jeff, Senator Waldstreicher, do you want to make any opening remarks before we go over to the planning staff?
Yeah, well, let me just start with a thank you. Honored to serve with my teammate Jared Solomon, who organized this meeting with his chief of staff, Eden Durbin. And as Jared mentioned, we are here for you. So to the extent that we need to talk through some of these changes, make adaptations, work through what your community is saying, that you are either part of or represent as a municipal official, we are here for you and happy to be responsive.
Thanks, Jeff. So with that, I am going to introduce Reem, and Reem, I should ask how to pronounce your last name so that I don't butcher it.
Thanks, Delegate Solomon. It's Reyes.
Rayef, that's what I was going to say, but that's the former teacher in me. Always ask before you assume. So Reem Rayef, here from WMATA, who was one of the brains behind the operations of of the changes to the bus lines. And I also probably should have mentioned that, again, in an initial world of limited resources, one route change may inconvenience a small group of people, but the broader change may also benefit a much larger group. So, we wanted to make sure that we got the full picture from both RideOn and WMATA. And so with that, I also want to introduce Andy Wexler, who's with a transit planner with RideOn. And obviously, RideOn and WMATA overlap, and some of the changes in the WMATA routes are now being picked up by additional changes in RideOn. So again, just looking at sort of like one system in isolation also doesn't always give you a complete picture. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them. And we have a fairly intimate group here, so I think there's going to be a lot of time for Q&A and a lot of opportunity to sort of walk through in intimate detail what the new routes are going to look like. So I will pass it over to the WMATA folks.
Hey everyone, I'm gonna try and share my screen. Let's see here. Share screen. Share. And we'll do this. Can everyone see that, my presentation?
Yes, we're getting a little feedback. You don't have a phone on or anything, do you?
I don't.
Okay. Well, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. Okay, so I'm here to discuss some of the changes coming to the Metro bus network, and as folks, as Delegate Solomon actually highlighted, this is
Sorry
a
to
big
interrupt, Rain.
change.
If everybody could put themselves on mute, please, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
So I'm here to discuss the Better Bus Network redesign, which is the first big network redesign that Metro Bus is making in its 50-year history. What is it, and how did we get to the network that we have today? And how can you learn about the new network and spread the word to your community? And then I know that we'll have some time for questions after my colleagues at RideOn present. So what is the Better Bus Network redesign? Again, it's the first comprehensive redesign that Metro's planners have attempted, basically to match the transit service that we provide to the transit demands of the region today. Obviously, people are traveling differently across the region than they did in the 1970s. And that means that we need to really reevaluate where our buses go, how frequently they go, when they run. All of that has changed in the past 50 years, of course, as new housing developments go up in new parts of the region. People's work travel is really different, especially after the pandemic. And so reevaluating the bus network was a really important way that we could make sure that we're continuing to provide the service that people in the region need. As Delegate Solomon noted, this was a revenue neutral and actually resource neutral redesign, which means that we didn't have any additional operations funding, any additional buses, or any additional bus operators. There's actually a nationwide bus operator shortage, which you may have heard about. So this network takes the resources that we had and improves service across the region by 7% by basically reshuffling where our buses go and when they operate. And how frequently. So as Delegate Solomon mentioned, that means that there's going to be trade-offs in the across the region. But we're hoping that we can get ahead of any confusion or frustration by giving people the resources they need to think through their trips in the future come June 29th and plan accordingly. Some major attributes of this network are on the left side of the slide here. The new network makes the bus a little bit more convenient and intuitive to use, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. One of the big changes is that we're improving service in a lot of parts of our network on evenings and on weekends, which was a huge ask that we heard during the engagement period. And it fills service gaps, again, in those places where new developments have popped up and there's significant demand for bus service where it wasn't provided by the existing network. And that means better service for our customers and for the region in general. And the sign you see on the right here is the bus flag that you've hopefully seen cropping up all across the region to indicate, hey, bus service is changing. And you'll see your old routes at the top and the new routes at the bottom. So that was a lot of information and background, but our core message is that your route is changing on June 29th, whether you live in Maryland, whether you live in DC, whether you live in Virginia and Prince George's County or Montgomery. Every route is changing in some way. Some bus routes are staying exactly the same in terms of where they travel, but they are getting a new name. So you'll need to know the new name so you can look out for that new bus route name. A lot of routes are changing their frequency, the hours of operation, where their stops are, and where they end and begin. So some of those routes are changing in more substantial ways. But you don't need to learn the changes across the entire network. You just need to know about the trips that you take on a regular basis. And we have resources available for you to learn about those changes and begin to make sense of the new network. This is one of the ways that I mentioned that we're really trying to make the buses a little bit easier to ride by adding meaning to the names of the routes. Currently, the bus routes don't have very much meaning. Metrobus was, I think, originated as an agglomeration of three private bus service agencies, and so we've adopted those names, and these are kind of legacy names that don't have a ton of meaning to our customers, and so we took this redesign as an opportunity to rename every single route so that it has a little bit more meaning. So the way that we do that is that the first character will indicate what jurisdiction a bus route primarily operates in. So routes beginning with M will serve primarily Montgomery County, although they'll dip into DC or Prince George's County. But if most of the service is in Montgomery County, that route will begin with an M. Same for Prince George's County, those will begin with a P. In Arlington and Alexandria, routes will begin with an M, with an A, and in Falls Church and Fairfax, routes will begin with an F. For DC routes, routes that primarily serve downtown DC will begin with a D. So those are like mostly north-south routes. And then routes that are more cross-town will begin with a C, traveling east-west. Routes ending in an X for that third character indicate limited stop routes. So they won't stop at every single bus stop along that route or along that corridor, but they'll skip several so that people who need to move quickly across the length of the route are able to do so. And then that middle character is meant to refer to a kind of neighborhood or a corridor. So the D40 and the D4X both run along Georgia Avenue. And so now I know that if I see a D4, I know that it'll take me to approximately the same place. And I know that the D4X is also an option for me because the 4 is kind of the common identifier between them. So when the middle character is the same, that indicates that that several routes with the same middle character are serving and operating the same corridor and neighborhood. But this network redesign didn't come out of nowhere. It was certainly a function of our planners evaluating ridership and where people are going. But it also meant a lot of stakeholder outreach, which just means talking to people who ride the bus and making sure that these changes are proposing are actually changes that make our bus riders' lives easier. And that took many, many forms, all of those on the left. We did surveys, we had public briefings and workshops where we gave people markers and big maps to kind of mark them up. We were at community events. On the right, you'll see here the outreach that we did near Chevy Chase. We had ride-alongs, which is basically Metro staff riding on the bus and saying, hey, if this route changed in this way, would that make your life better or worse? Where do you wish that this bus went? And does this bus serve the hours that you need it to serve? We also had people posted up at our Metro stations, again, talking with folks about the bus. And we had briefings with key organizations and employers because they have a really good sense of, where are your employees trying to go and how can we better serve them to get to where they're going. So we're now about 2.5 weeks out from our launch day, which is June 29th. It's a Sunday. And this timeline shows you a little bit of where we've been and where we're going. We have our bus schedules completed. We have installed lots and lots of flags across the region. Our operators have begun training on their new routes and And we have released our resources that I'll talk through today for our customers to learn about the new network. And in basically the coming weeks and in the past few weeks, we've been doing lots and lots of briefings just like these, as well as events where we're informing people about the new network and letting them know about the upcoming changes. In terms of informational materials about the new network, there's a lot of ways that you can learn about what your new trips will look like. And the resources that we're really turning people to, the resource that we're really turning people to is the trip planner. So Metro has a trip planner, and it's been live for a very long time. You can always use it to plan your trips on Metro, but it basically works like Google Maps, where you enter an origin and destination. You can choose whether you'd like to travel by bus or by rail or both. And the trip planner suggests a route for you. The cool thing about Trip Planner right now is that you can use it to plan your future trip. So I can say on June 30th, I'm going to need to go to the doctor in Friendship Heights. How do I get there? Using Metro. And the Trip Planner will show me my new route with the new network. And that's something that you cannot quite yet do in Google Maps. But you will be able to on June 29th. We also have a tool called the Route Crosswalk, which is on WMATA.com/betterbus. It's the first thing you'll see. And somebody had asked, hey, what's the new L8? What is the new meaning? What is the new route name of the L8? So you can enter L8 into the Route Crosswalk and click Find My New Route. And then the tool will spit out the name of the network of the route that kind of approximates the L8. It's not going to be a one-for-one shift, but it might be one or two routes that take you to where the L8 would have taken you. It'll also show you a route profile, which again provides an in-depth map of each route along with points of interest along that route. It also provides information about frequency and time of day and operation. And then finally, we also have neighborhood profiles, which kind of summarize all of the changes that are happening in a specific neighborhood or area and say, hey, if you're used to taking these 3 or 4 routes in your neighborhood, what are the new routes going to look like and kind of what specific changes are happening. So you can see a kind of a zoomed in map of your area of interest, as well as a side-by-side, hey, the L8 is now going to be the M22. And here's how the route has changed.
Reem, can I just interrupt for 1 second and maybe
Yes, please.
something that Andy will cover in his presentation, but I think what would be really helpful, and maybe we can do this after Andy, is if you don't already have it teed up, how the L8 is changing, how the route specifically, because the concerns that I think we shared with you all were, that segment from east, west, south to western, essentially from the circle is now that's changing. That's where the bus traditionally runs today, but will not run anymore. And so, what are we doing to fill that gap? How is RideOn filling that gap with the 1 and the 11? Or I guess it's just the 11 during rush hour. So again, if we can get to that maybe after Andy's presentation, but I think that's sort of at the core of what I think folks on the call are hoping to know. And I know that we've heard specifically from some of the residents and the Columbia Country Club that has a lot of its workers that take that route.
Got it. Thanks, Doug Salmon. Yeah, definitely happy to talk more about that.
So I didn't interrupt, but I just wanted to get that got through.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. A couple of more resources that are available online. You can see a full network map of service in DC and Maryland and Virginia if you want. That's usually overwhelming for people, myself included. We have fact sheets about kind of the history of the Better Bus project. We have an FAQ that provides resources about, how do I find out about my new trips, or even how do I submit a complaint or a concern about the new network. All of that's in the FAQ document. And then finally, for people who want to print a timetable for a specific route or set of routes, we have kind of a print-friendly option online, so you can print out your own timetables. But the trip planner is the best way to learn about your route. It is somebody who's used to taking the L8 should consider using the trip planner because it, again, allows you to see what your trips will look like on or after June 29th. And you use it by entering your origin and your destination. and indicating what time you would like to leave. And then excuse me, sorry, I'll back up. The important thing is to enter on the right there a date on or after June 29th so that you can see your future trip as opposed to your current trip. And then it'll give you the results. So what does your future trip look like? So it looks like here, if I'm going from New Carrollton Metro to Suitland Metro, I'll take the P60. And that'll be a one-seat ride. And I think that this involved kind of a lengthy transfer under the existing network. We also have physical materials to help us reach more customers and make sure we're getting information in front of everyone. You'll see at our metro stations and bus depots the A-frame signs and yard signs at the bottom of the slide. And then for accessibility, we also have this Take One document on the right, which is translated into most of the languages that are commonly spoken into the region and directs people to our website where they can learn more. If you want to learn about the new network in person, we have ride-alongs and bus stop chats. These are what you see on the right here, which is basically where we'll have Metro staff riding on the bus or sitting at bus stops to talk with folks about the changes that are upcoming and how they can think about planning their new trips. And so we're really focused on routes where there's going to be high change, so that you can see that will be on the L8 and the E4, along with the L2. Basically just making sure that people who are used to taking the bus every day and using it for their regular trips aren't caught off guard. On the left here, we also have a list of Better Bus partners that are near Chevy Chase, where you can, again, pick up some of those physical materials that I named on the previous slide. Better Bus partners are organizations and elected officials and schools, community centers that have basically signed up to say, hey, I'm going to be kind of a community conduit of information about the Better Bus network. They'll put a sign up at their storefront or on their windows and say, hey, if you have questions about the Better Bus network, you could come to me. So here are some of the Better Bus partners that are kind of in your area and have volunteered to do just that. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight some connections around and near Chevy Chase. Here is a snapshot of the neighborhood profile, or I think of the larger map. I think it's important to highlight existing and new connections because some folks are seeing the signs on our bus stops that say, hey, this bus stop is going away, and they assume that there is no longer going to be any bus service in their area, and that's just not true. The bus stop may be moving over one block or being renamed, but bus service will continue to support Chevy Chase and the areas around it. So here are some of the routes that I chose to highlight here, but there's obviously many more. So that's all I've got. I'm not sure if I should pass over to the RideOn folks, or should we do Q&A now? Whatever you guys think makes most sense.
I was going to say, I think because so much of this terrain, the territory is going to be covered by RideOn. Why don't we hold questions until the end? We have a couple I know that were submitted in advance as folks registered.
Perfect.
But Andy, why don't we turn it over to you, and then we'll take questions. We'll take questions after the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Before I start, I just want to quickly introduce Deanna Archie, who's the Chief of Planning and Implementation for RideOn, and she just wanted to make a brief statement before I get started.
Thank you, Annie and Deanna. Thank you for helping us organize this as well, being such a good partner.
Oh, you're welcome. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the context of how we started. Ring indicated that this study actually started about 2.5 years ago, and it was a collaborative effort between RideOn and WMATA as we planned this year one service change. We did our best to, as WMATA was making their plans to help facilitate those areas where gaps may have exist. And so we made changes according to various changes that WMATA had. One thing to note is we did a swap of resources. And so what you may know today is the Q line. That will become a new ride-on service. There are other areas where the L8, which is more pertinent to this discussion. Andy will go into the details of how that service overlaps with the ride-on service and where we filled in those gaps. So we'll be here after the presentation to answer any specific questions you have, but Andy will give you more detailed information on the route out alignment.
Okay. Thanks, Deanna. Let me just take one moment to share my screen. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is not going to be very slide heavy. I just have a few things to share. Just some quick general housekeeping. On the maps that I'm about to show, the black dashed lines show where the routes go now, and the solid lines that are different colors show either where they will go, when the changes take effect on June 29th, or the bus routes that will replace portions of the current routes. I'm only going to talk about the changes to ride-on service that affect Chevy Chase specifically. So I'm going to talk about ride-on Route 34, and I'm also going to talk about the L8, which is technically a Metro bus route, but ride-on operates it on weekends. So I'm going to cover that as well. As Deanna mentioned, there are also changes to other ride-on routes in other parts of the county. But I just want to emphasize that the vast majority of ride-on routes will stay the same for now. So this is not as big of a system-wide change for ride-on. This is more of a targeted change to certain routes, and much of it is in response to Better Bus. I'm also going to put a link in the meeting chat that has it's a link to the service change webpage that's on the Ride On website, and that has FAQs and more information about all of the service changes, including to the 34 and the L8. So I'll do that as soon as I'm done talking. Like Better Bus, all of the ride-on changes are going to take effect on Sunday, June 29th. So there won't be any time gaps in service. It'll basically the current service will end on Saturday night, and the new service will start on Sunday morning. So it'll be seamless in that regard. Um, and so let me go ahead and get started. Maybe. Here we go. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about Route 34. I'm going to talk about Route L8, and I know there was also a question about fares, so I'll just cover that very quickly at the end. So this is a map of Route 34. And as I mentioned, the black dotted line shows where it currently goes from Friendship Heights through Bethesda, past Medical Center, through Kensington, and up to Wheaton Metro. And then certain trips continue on north of Wheaton, up to Aspen Hill along Veers Mill Road and Connecticut Avenue. Most of Route 34, I know it doesn't look it, but the most heavily traveled portion of Route 34 will actually stay intact, and that's the portion between Bethesda and Wheaton, which includes Medical Center and Kensington and University Boulevard. The major changes are that it will not continue south of Bethesda to Friendship Heights, and the certain peak period trips that go north from Wheaton to Aspen Hill will also be discontinued. Let me talk first about the Bethesda to Friendship Heights portion, since I know that that's of greatest interest to folks in Chevy Chase. So like I mentioned, the 34 will end at Bethesda instead of Friendship Heights, and the route that's going to replace that is the Metrobus D96, and that's the line in red down at the bottom, and that route goes down Wisconsin Avenue from Bethesda. It goes to Friendship Heights Metro, and then it continues into the District of Columbia. And that route runs 7 days a week. And Reem, please stop me if I get any of this wrong. But as far as I know, it runs 7 days a week with 20-minute frequency on weekdays during peak times and in the evening, and roughly 30-minute frequency at other times. So that is a fairly frequent service that's comparable to what the 34 currently provides between Bethesda and Friendship Heights. The second change to Route 34 is the portion from Wheaton to Aspen Hill. And as you can see here, there won't be any service. The blue, I should just emphasize, the blue is what Route 34 will look like after the change. So it will terminate at Wheaton. There will not be any more Route 34 service to Aspen Hill. And what we've done instead is we've extended Route 41, and that's the green line that you see at the top of the map. Currently, it goes from Aspen Hill, the same terminal point as the L8 does, and also these Route 34 trips. And it goes down to Glenmont Metro. It travels down Connecticut Avenue to Weller Road to Georgia Avenue briefly to Glenmont. What we're doing is we're keeping all of that intact, but we're also extending it further down Connecticut Avenue. So it's going to go all the way down to Pliers Mill Road, which is in the middle of Kensington, as most of you probably know. And then it'll take Pliers Mill from Connecticut to Georgia. Then it'll get on Georgia and it'll terminate at Wheaton Metro Station. Um, the 41, not everybody might be familiar with it, but it runs 7 days a week and it provides 40-minute frequency at all times when it operates. Um, Further down, below Kensington or south of Kensington, the route M22 Metrobus will run from Bethesda on East West Highway, and now I'm going from south to north. It starts in Bethesda. It takes East West Highway to Connecticut, um, and it goes up to Kensington, and then it veers off of Connecticut and takes University Boulevard into Wheaton Metro Station. So if you're already on the M22, if you boarded somewhere south, you can take it all the way to Wheaton as well. It's you can think of it as an alternative to Route 34. And for the portion north of Wheaton, several bus routes will continue to serve Veers Mill Road, including RideOn Route 40, which is a new route, and that's going to be replacing the queue lines that are currently on the Metrobus queue lines that are currently on Veers Mill. Also Route 48, a portion of Route 38, and a new Metrobus route M12 will also serve the Veers Mill Road corridor. So Veers Mill is heavily traveled, and it will continue to be heavily traveled by bus service. Okay, and the next one is, of course, the L8, which, as you know, technically it's a Metrobus route. And WMATA currently operates it on weekdays, and RideOn currently operates it on Saturdays and Sundays. And again, the black dashed line is where the L8 currently goes up Connecticut Avenue. So the L8 itself will be discontinued, but all portions of it will be served by other bus routes. So let me start at the southern end. Ride-on routes 1 and 11, which are current ride-on routes, will keep serving Western Avenue and Connecticut Avenue south of East-West Highway. And then, as they currently do, they'll go out East-West Highway to Silver Spring. Route 1 is a 7-day-a-week service. The frequency varies from 20 minutes during peak to 30 minutes most other times, including on the weekends. And then Route 11 runs Monday to Friday only, and it's a 40-minute service. So it's in addition to Route 1. Route 1 is the main service in this area. And the frequencies for those routes will not change in June. They will be the same as they are currently. Um, Partly just to keep things stable from the ride-on end. From Connecticut and East West Highway up to Kensington, the portion of Connecticut that's covered by the LA will be covered by the M22, which is a Metrobus route. And as I mentioned before, that will start in Bethesda. It'll reach Connecticut on East West Highway, and then after Kensington, it takes University Boulevard to Wheaton, and then it continues north on Georgia Avenue past Glenmont and goes all the way sort of along the edge of Aspen Hill and all the way up to Olney. So that it's sort of a combination of the L8 and the Y services on the upper portion of Georgia Avenue. And then finally, the portion of Connecticut north of Kensington will be covered by the Route 41 extension, which I just mentioned. And so to transfer between the 34 and the 41 or the M22 and the 41, you can either do it in Kensington or you can do it at the Wheaton Metro station. Both the 34 and the 41 will stop at the same bus bay, and the M22 and the Route 40 will stop a few bays over. So it's just a short walk to get from one bay to another. Sorry. And then just finally a word on the fares. So I can't speak with full authority on WMATA, but I believe the fares are going to stay the same. Is that correct? Starting in June?
Yes, correct. Thanks,
Okay,
Andy.
so WMATA fares, bus fares will stay the same, and RideOn will actually be going fare free starting on June 29th. So it will be free for all riders. And the goal of that is to improve transit accessibility and encourage more residents to use public transportation. And that was approved recently by the county council for FY26, which will start on July 1st and run through June of 2026. Right now, we don't know whether it will continue after that, but it will be in place for the entire fiscal year. So for the next year, starting in July or starting June 29th. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time. And Deanna and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Andy and Reem and Deanna. Appreciate it. I'm just pulling up the questions that I know we got in advance. I think we covered most of them. I'm just going to pull these up to make sure we didn't miss anything. Just had it up. Sorry, this is part of having too many screens open on your computer. So we talked about the L8 frequency. We talked about the fares. Reem, maybe you sort of covered the 4 bus stops I most often use. I see signs will be removed. Do you know? I know obviously signage is changing because of the name changes. I'm assuming there are going to be new signs that are going to be replacing those shortly.
Yes. So right now, I think most of our like probably like 80% of our bus flags for the new network are in place. If there are places where it looks like an old flag is still hanging out, then that doesn't say this bus stop is going away, then please let me know. Whoever sent you that question should definitely let us know. But in terms of stops being removed, I am happy to double check if the person can send me the actual intersections. I can double check that those are indeed being eliminated. But if I know part of the question was, what can I do to advocate for my stop sticking around? Ahead of June 29th, we aren't making any more changes to the network because schedules are being written, but our planners are constantly evaluating the performance of our bus network and making sure that it's working as it should. And that includes evaluating on-time performance of our buses, but also just hearing from our customers like, hey, this stop doesn't make any sense. It would be better if it were a block over. And so at 202 Go Metro, which is our phone number, people can provide feedback, but there is also an online form, which I think is a better way to do it. And it is at WMATA.custhelp.com. And so people can let us know if they have any complaints or concerns about the existing or about the new network and how it is functioning or not functioning. And on this form that this link will direct them to, there is a way to say, hey, I'm specifically commenting on bus service and on the Better Bus Network in particular. So that is a really good way to make sure that our planners hear the comment and receive it directly.
And Reem, maybe a follow-up question. In situations, and Deanna and Andy, this may be for you as well, where the 1 and the 11 overlap with the L8, is the signage being replaced completely, or is the L8 just going to be sort of covered over so that it's no longer it's clear in places where obviously the L8 route is changing, where it used to overlap more with the 1 and the 11 and it's not anymore? You all are not changing those stops, so is the signage changing there? What's the plan there?
So I can take it. So the example that Reem showed where the flag indicated in June 28th start, June 29th will be what the new route will be, will switch. So that should be on the flag. But we also have supplemental signs. So these are signs that are attached to the pole that has a map. Similar to what Andy showed earlier, and it has the detail of the coverage, so you can see what routes, that WMATA was serving, what routes are being replaced. So there's language that indicates that, but there's also a map that illustrates the change.
Okay. Great. Well, I think that covered all of the questions that were submitted in advance. So, we're a pretty small group here. So, if you just want to raise your hand or, if you're not in a place to speak, if you just want to drop the question in the chat. But we've got about 15 minutes left. Obviously, we could go a couple minutes long if there's still questions. But if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand. The hand function is under the reaction, which is the heart. I feel like Zoom changes this every single time there's an update. But if you click on the heart, you get all the different reaction options, including a new rocket ship, which I have not seen before. Or just drop drop your question in the chat, and we'll read it. Gene, go ahead.
Well, I'm honored that I get to go first. Thank you very much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. I'm going to date myself and tell you that I took the L2 and the L4 bus into DC, down Connecticut Avenue, to the district office where I worked for for Walter Washington.
Oh,
Yes, many years ago. Close to 50, not quite because I wasn't married then, but so I bring a little bit of experience. I hope you don't mind me running my mouth. L2, L4, loved it, but I have not moved in 50 years. So I still live east of Connecticut Avenue in a municipality called Martin's Additions. And I had to walk out to Connecticut Avenue back in the day and cross Connecticut Avenue to get to the other side, obviously, to go. 'Cause I'm on the east side of Connecticut. I got to get west and head downtown. So my husband's next to me, so he can correct me if I'm wrong about directions, right, Bill?
Got it.
Connecticut Avenue was so deadly then to cross. There's no crosswalks. There are no signs. There's no lights. There's no nothing there. Okay? You know what? It's no different now. Okay? Somehow, as a matter of fact, the traffic is so much worse than it was 49 years ago. To get across the street from east to west is deadly. That scares me that nobody seems to be talking about what are we doing to make access to these stops, let alone whether or not the right stop, any safer than they were 50 years ago. Okay, that's sort of one of I don't see it. And I know a lot of citizens who live on Connecticut Avenue have fought this and say, we don't want these stoplights. But I don't, we got to at least think about it. The other thing that sort of concerns me a little bit about what I've heard is you talking about people who use the buses now, and let's make sure they know what the bus change numbers and blah blah. What about people that would like to use the bus and would like to use mass transit, but it's just not convenient, it doesn't work? Have, to what extent was thought given to what are the populations that we can't get to, that can't walk that far, especially as community changes, as the aging population argues that we should be aging in place? Is that any of that been thought about? How do we get to the people that don't ride the bus all the time and say, we want you to ride the bus? Now, I'm not going to get on a scooter. You can tell from the color of my hair. I'm not going to take a scooter. I'm not going to take one of those electric bikes. But I have my bus stop would be my metro stop would be Friendship Heights. I wonder to what extent did we think about aging populations, about changes in the community, the change in not making anything really more accessible to getting safely across the street. And is there really a way to get from Martin's Additions, where I live, to Friendship Heights in less than a 45-minute walk that not a whole lot of people, or a bike ride? Anyway, I'll stop talking, but I will say thank you so much to all you guys because I know it's a heck of a tough subject. And I actually, when I was working for the mayor, I worked in the area, long-range financial planning and developing the metro system at the time. So I'll sign off and I look forward to anybody having anything constructive other than wanting to throw rocks at me. Okay?
I can start off and Reem and Andy, if you want to join in. Um, but one thing I will say is doing this study with WMATA's Better Bus Network Redesign, Montgomery County held a similar study that's called RideOn Reimagine. And it was, as I had mentioned, it was a 2.5 year study where there was extensive outreach that was done as surveys. We had focus groups. Our approach for the RideOn Reimagine with the focus groups and we had individuals from each of the areas throughout the county to meet in their perspective areas, and just we gave them a map and we said, here's a map, tell us where do you want to go. It basically showed what the existing service provided, and then where in these gaps or areas that you would like to go that aren't present today. And so from that, the input that we received, that helped us build this future network that we will roll out. So year one was minimal changes with that we will be implementing in June, but we have a 5 year plan and we have a visionary plan, which will be for further years out. But from that plan, it was an extensive expansion of our Flex program, which is more of a circulator, small bus circulator in communities that will take you within the community or connect to a fixed route service. Did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, can I respond to you? I think the idea of littler buses circulating in and out of these communities, I think it's really something we should explore. We become more and more and more dense in the Chevy Chase area, that and in some ways the distance to the main corridors becomes even greater because of the danger of crossing those roads.
Well, and
It really does. And
I was
so,
just
so those little circulators, I'm sorry, Jared, I'll stop in 1 second. The thought of having a way to reach out and into the communities, I support somebody exploring it. And you can call me and I'll say, good job. Okay.
No, Gene, I was just going to say, I mean, I think even with the completion of the Purple Line, that idea is going to be more and more important because
Good.
we obviously the Purple Line stations don't have parking. So we want folks to be able to get from, and not everybody's going to be able to walk, not everybody's going to be able to bike, but if you can provide circulation services, that's something I know many of us are very interested in exploring going forward. And then
Yes, very true.
Gene, thank you.
Absolutely, Jared. I agree 100%.
Chair Leonard, there was one person who had their hand up before you, and then you will be next. And again, I will apologize. Evangeline, I want to make sure I pronounce that correctly, but I see that you have your hand up.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thanks so much. I really appreciate the changes you've made. I've used the bus in the past and really appreciated the cell phone apps that have allowed me to find out when the next bus arrives. But I have an old one that I downloaded about 8 years ago. Will those still be active, or do I need to get new apps for my cell phone?
Evangeline, which apps do you use?
Sorry?
Which apps do you use? Is it the transit app, or I'm curious to know which ones you're
I
using?
don't even remember. I think it's the WMATA app for
So there's a new WMATA app. I believe you'll still be able to use the old one, but the new Metro app is called Metro Pulse.
okay.
And I think it's basically an upgrade of the existing WMATA app. So
Metro Pulse.
Metro Pulse, that's right.
And what about
I think-
RideOn?
So Andy, did you want to take it?
Oh no, I was just going to say there is a RideOn trip planner app as well. It's also a mobile app, and there's also a web platform if you're just using a computer.
Is it the old one?
It's the one we're currently using.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there are plenty of third-party apps. We RideOn and Metro both share transit data publicly that third-party apps
Right.
can use, and there are a lot of very good ones out there. One of the ones we tend to tell people about is simply called Transit. And it works very well because it integrates Metro, RideOn, and all the other transit services in the region show up on that one app. So it's very
Okay.
helpful.
Thank you much.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that ties to a question in the chat. Hassel, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asked, will Transit, Apple, and Google Maps still function with the updated routes? Yes, I think from both of us. Although Transit and Apple and Google Maps likely will not update until the day of the changes. I'm not a computer scientist, so I don't have the precise language for this, but they don't have the capability to integrate a future network into their app yet. So that is why we are directing folks towards the trip planner on Metro's website, because you can plan a future trip there. But on June 29th, if you go to use Google Maps or Transit or Apple Maps to plan your trip, you will be able to see that with the new networks.
Well, for me, the key is the next bus arrival time is what really has been helpful. Thank you. That's all I need. And please go on to the next question.
Thank you, Evangeline. Really appreciate it. Chair Leonard, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having this Zoom. So for Little Chevy Chase Village, the biggest loss, of course, is the bus that would continue down Connecticut Avenue from Bradley all the way to the Circle and Western. We're eliminating that entirely. So presumably it's because there wasn't enough ridership to make it worth your while as you did this study. But you did say that changes can happen if this turns out to be a mistake. So people are going to ask me when this bus disappears, where did our bus go? And I would like to be able to tell them whether or not changes can happen if this is a problem. It's a huge loss for the people that live and work in Chevy Chase Village to not be able to continue up or down Connecticut Avenue on one bus.
Well, if you're
But maybe there just weren't riders. I mean, presumably you made the decision to eliminate it for a reason.
So just real quickly, I just want to remind you that the routes 1 and 11, which currently run on that lower portion of Connecticut Avenue and go down Western to Friendship Heights, will continue to run. So there will be bus service on that portion of Connecticut.
So you'll have to get off at Bradley and switch and wait for a bus that will continue down Connecticut. Is that how it will work?
Or Chair Leonard,
No,
I think
Bradley. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say because I know Deanna and I had a similar conversation, and she was kind enough to sort of walk me through. And
Okay.
Chair Leonard, I know Eden and I had a conversation with Shayna about this. I think the issue is more, and there's really, I mean, frankly, this would have to be changed in the future. It's more that there used to be a direct, the L8 used to run essentially from
Yes.
Aspen Hill straight through. And the issue is if you're working in the village and you're coming from that part of the county, it's now creating at least two transfers or at least one transfer when before you had one route ride. For residents in the village who are trying to get from Connecticut to the metro, you still have the 1 and the 11, which provides that support service. It's more
Mhm.
for folks who are working in the village, that one stop, one seat ride is now being replaced
Right.
essentially with a transfer.
Correct.
Right. So, and that must be because you didn't have enough people to warrant continuing going down Connecticut Avenue. Or,
I can check in with our planners to hear more about the specific reasoning, but I suspect that that is the reason. A lot of there are certainly people who used to have a one seat ride who are going to need to make a transfer to a metro station or to another bus, while many other folks are going to get a one seat ride for the first time to somewhere they haven't been able to get before. So that's what we mean when we say that, the redesign is full of trade-offs, and it's what comes with having a revenue neutral redesign. I think if we had additional resources, I think we'd all like to retain all the bus service that we had and add additional bus service. But to your question,
about whether change happens if it turns out to be a disaster.
yeah,
I mean, I did your plan your ride thing to go from Kensington to Chevy Chase Club, for example, which has the most employees in, near us in Chevy Chase Village. So plan your ride. You just go straight down Connecticut Avenue and you get off at Chevy Chase Club. Then June 29th, plan your ride. You go to Bradley, you take Bradley, you go over to Wisconsin, you go down to Friendship Heights, then you go up Western, and then you go up Connecticut. So you're making a huge loop around. I'm not sure that those employees know yet that that's happening to them. And you might get a lot of pushback that, I mean, I'm surprised that the club isn't on. I don't think anybody from the club is on this.
No,
They're the biggest employee. Our
yeah,
employee
I mean, so
really
Shayna,
surprised.
I know
Yeah,
Shayna shared this. I did get an email from somebody saying that they didn't get the link at the beginning of the meeting, so I sent it over to them. Yeah, I
I,
mean,
I didn't get the link until 2 minutes before the meeting. I almost gave up. I mean, I kept putting my name in but anyway, um, I don't know. I mean, maybe there aren't, because I'm not aware. I don't know how many people were riding that.
well,
Um,
I will share this with you, Chair Leonard. I told Shayna to, give our contact information to the folks at the club. 'Cause I'll be honest with you, they've never really reached out to us for anything. I mean, I know some of the folks there, and I haven't heard from them. I mean, again, other than tonight, the one Zoom snafu, and we did get an email from. So this was Megan from Chevy Chase said she was the one that couldn't get the link, and I sent it to her. And then somebody at Columbia emailed and said they wouldn't be able to join. And so to just forward the presentation to
yeah,
them. So,
yeah. So Columbia, it's easier to just walk from Bradley.
yep.
But anyway, I mean, it's not like the club is my constituent or anything. I just wondered if people do find out about this change the hard way by trying to get a bus that doesn't exist anymore, and they ask us, what should we tell them?
uh,
It's too late,
you
or
it
maybe
is.
things will change in the future.
Yes, it's both things. So it is too late to make changes before June 29th. We did have an extensive community outreach process to intake feedback about what the network would do and how it would change the existing routes. So no changes before June 29th. But as I mentioned previously, our planners are always intaking feedback about how the network is working and where bus stops are needed and where more service is needed, so that when we do have additional resources to add service, we can take those things into consideration. And so the pathways to do that are at WMATA.com, WMATA.custhelp.com. So I can stick that into the chat. And I can also stick my email into the chat. So if anyone has questions about anything after this briefing, then we can continue to talk.
I was going to say, and for folks who are watching this in the recording, we'll make sure that all of these links and the email addresses are included in the follow-up email that goes out afterwards. And Chair Leonard, one of the things I had offered to have Shayna convey to the folks at the club, and now that we have their contact information, we'll just follow up directly with them. At either Columbia or Chevy Chase, I said, the WMATA and RideOn folks have been kind enough to say they would do a meeting specifically for the workers and the employees there whose commutes may be upended, and we could hear directly from them. So we will follow back up with them. We haven't been taken up on that at this point yet, but if
Yeah. I
specifically
guess it affects
folks,
the library too, Chevy Chase Library on Connecticut.
yeah, a little bit. So the L8 will still go down. It's not gonna continue. It's not gonna be as direct a connection, but it still will continue down that route.
Well, no, the
Oh, I thought
L8
it
is
was being
going away.
The
Oh, I'm sorry,
M22.
the M20. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking
22 will serve Chevy
the
Chase
M20. Thank you.
Library.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
continue down to Connecticut
M20 will
to,
serve. Okay, got it. All
yeah,
right.
M22.
it's just not going to go to the same.
22.
M22.
Yeah, it's not going to go to the same northernmost destination that the L8 currently does, but the L8 in that section will be replaced with the M22.
Mhm.
And we will, like I said, we will follow back up with the folks at the club to convey that offer again. Especially after the 29th, if things are not looking, if more folks are impacted than maybe was expected, we can have that conversation and make sure that those issues get communicated directly to WMATA and RideOn.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
and
it.
just to sum up one more time, the big dividing line is East-West Highway. North of East-West
That's what I mean.
Highway
Yeah,
is
I
the
meant east-west.
M22. South of it's the one in the 11.
Yeah, I said Bradley. I meant East-West Highway.
Oh, it's
Thank you.
okay. It's okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Appreciate
Sure
it.
thing.
So I think the only other question that I saw pop up in the chat is not sort of directly for the RideOn or the WMATA folks, so I will answer this one about the pedestrian safety issues from I think Sarah Stevens, who may not be on anymore, but I will just say we hear you loud and clear on that. We have been working, our delegation has been working with SHA as well as with all of the municipalities up and down Connecticut from really where University and Connecticut split all the way down to the circle. We've been making progress. It is incremental and sometimes slow going, but we have made some improvements. We actually just had a call with SHA earlier this past week to talk about some of the issues on Bradley that have popped up. We've worked really closely with the town of Chevy Chase specifically there. So we know, obviously that road is a tough one. It's fenced in. I will say I heard from the folks at MCDOT who run the camera program along with MPD that the speed cameras that have even we've been able to increase the number of them running from the circle all the way up to university, that they have seen a dramatic decline in the number of serious crashes on that stretch of Connecticut, that entire stretch, which is an improvement, particularly on the stretch north of Connecticut through Kensington and Chevy Chase View. So those conversations continue. We had the State Highway Administration has come up with sort of a comprehensive plan a few years ago. We need them to implement more of it, which again is part of the reason why it has been such a huge priority for us to make sure that pedestrian safety dollars and infrastructure money is fully funded, so that we don't have to wait another decade for improvements. So certainly, if there are specific areas. We're working on I know the Section 5 folks have asked us about a potential red light camera on one stretch that we've been talking with MPD about as well. So I wanted folks to know that that's a continuing, ongoing issue, the entire stretch of Connecticut. And so if there are specific hotspots that need to be addressed from one reason or another, please let us know. But I think that covers everything. I know we've gone a little over time, but I just again want to thank the WMATA and RideOn folks and the municipal leaders who were able to join us tonight, and folks who are interested in this. Again, we're always available. Senator Waldstreicher, myself, our staff. I want to thank Eden on my team who helped put this together. And yeah, for some reason, folks didn't get the link. We tried to send it out as many times as we could. I know sometimes things get caught in spam, but obviously this is being recorded, and just because you weren't able to get on a Zoom doesn't mean that we're not happy to follow up and answer questions. So feel free to please make sure that folks know that who may have had trouble getting on. And then Jeff, I saw you come off mute. Feel free to jump in if you want to say something.
No, just to conclude with saying thank you to you, Delegate Solomon. Thank you to Eden Durbin for organizing this. Thank you for everyone who got on this call, both staff for the relevant agencies as well as constituents and municipal leaders. We are here to help. As you know, there are two other members of our team who are incredible advocates for this community, Delegate Emily Shetty and Delegate Aaron Kaufman. And the four of us are proud to represent you. I'm going to put my personal cell phone in the chat so everyone has it in case you do not already. And thank you once more to Delegate Solomon for organizing tonight.
Thanks, everybody. With that, we will make sure, again, all this information is sent out as well. I'll drop I think probably everybody's got it already, but this is mine. So feel free to reach out again on anything, but particularly on these issues, as we know it's going to be an evolving situation over the next couple of weeks. But with that, thanks everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.